Amy for giving my presentation on housing. Housing in our community has become a very, very divisive issue lately. And so when I was asked to make some comments about it, I sort of thought, why me? My background is not in housing, but I've been involved with housing organizations and housing issues for over 50 years. And the last 10 years I was on a housing authority board here, and I need to make it very clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of the housing authority. Everything that I'm going to say tonight are my opinions, and my opinions alone. What I hope to do, over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of information about affordable housing. There's been a lot of numbers that have been bounced around. So what I want to do is sort of do a slow walk through some of the salient ideas and some of the numbers and some of the relevant documents. We hear a lot of things about AMI, area median income, UDC, and all these things. So that are going to affect the SMR proposal. So I want to do a slow walk through some of these, make some points, and at the end, hopefully bring it all together. And again, it's filtered through my lens of 50 years of experience. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the housing market and demand study that was recently done. It was commissioned by the Housing Authority, published in July of last year, and it was done by some very respected organizations out of the Front Range and national organizations. So the first key point that I drew from that was that our region's economy is heavily dependent on tourism and the vacation home industry. Duh, we all know that. The jobs that industry creates are below what is needed to afford housing. In fact, the average wage in Routt County is about $60,000, which when you talk about the earned median income, that's in the 65–70% range. In fact, 90% of the jobs in Routt County pay a wage below 100% area median income, which, just for reference, for one person, that's about $91,000, just under $100,000. The second key point from this study, new housing that's being built is not affordable or attainable. We see a lot of housing, a lot of construction going on, but it's not designed to meet the needs of the local workforce. And often, if it's condominiums, there are exorbitant HOA fees on those units. So the fourth point from this study, we know that there's a housing crisis in Routt County. The study pointed out that we need, over the next 10 years, we need approximately 3,200 affordable or workforce housing units. And that has become a very divisive issue in the community. But it's real. The last key point that I want to point out from the study is that renters face the greatest challenge in affordability, and they have the lowest perception of housing security. So if you're a renter in this market, in the last 5 years, more than 40% of people have said they've had to move because their landlord either doubled the rent or tripled the rent, or sold the unit out from under them. So the key takeaway from that study is that the housing market in Routt County is fundamentally out of reach for the people who keep our communities running. So what does that mean for South Routt? South Routt has some big challenges. Recently, they have launched an advisory board, a housing advisory board, and they're trying to deal with those challenges. and they've completed a needs assessment, a housing needs assessment. So they're working on the issue, but what we know is that in South Routt, the housing stock is old. It's an aging housing stock. Very little has been built in South Routt for 15 years. So there's a significant undersupply of affordable and workforce housing in South Routt. And there are very, very few affordable or workforce rental properties or properties that you can purchase in South Routt. So now let's go talk about some of the relevant documents that affect the Stagecoach Mountain Ranch. The first is the Routt County Master Plan. It's a document, 70 pages. It's a long-term strategic vision document that talks about community values and future goals. It's aspirational, advisory. It's fun to read, actually. Then there's the Stagecoach Community Plan, which is a sub-document of the master plan. The Stagecoach Community Plan clarifies the future direction for Stagecoach as a community. And it needs to be consistent with the goals of the Routt County Master Plan. Then there's the great all-encompassing UDC, which is a Unified Development Code. And this little document, if you're having trouble sleeping anytime, this would be a good one to read, because it's about 300 pages, and it is actually the legally binding tool that implements the master plan. And it regulates all the policies, the use, development, subdivision of land in unincorporated Routt County. So what are the key points from all of these relevant documents to Stagecoach Mountain Ranch? Excuse me. The first, community housing guideline. Oh, that was the last document I didn't talk about. Community housing guideline is a sub-document of the UDC, which is to assist the county in implementing housing requirements. So what the community housing guideline defines, there's 3 categories of housing: affordable housing, workforce housing, and employee housing. And so all of those, essentially affordable housing and workforce housing are the same thing. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why they broke it into 2 sections, but anyway, they did. For the Stagecoach Mountain Ranch, the affordable and workforce housing is called essential housing. And then, so I'll talk about that a little later. Then the other category, employee housing. Employee housing is interesting because employee housing is restricted for employees of a development or business. And according to the guidelines, there's no income restriction on those units. So a developer could build employee housing that would be for middle management, or it could be for upper management, or it could be for any of the other workers. So the master plan, again, the master plan is a suggestion. And it suggests that workforce housing be integrated into existing neighborhoods throughout a development, and that it include a diverse mix of housing and a spectrum of sales and rental prices. And that's about what the master plan talks about regarding housing. The UDC, very specific. So for workforce housing, shall include, this is directly from the document, a minimum of 15% of the total proposed development units, a variety of unit sizes, and to accommodate different household compositions. And then it goes on and it suggests employee housing should mitigate the impacts of the county's housing supply as the growth occurs. And to do that, it suggests, now it requires, to mitigate at least 15% of the number of year-round full-time FTE employees that the development requires to operate. So remember those numbers, 15% of the proposed dwelling units for affordable housing, 15% of the number of year-round employees, FTEs, for employee housing. So now, I went into the Stagecoach Mountain Ranch plan application. So, okay, first thing I need to look at is the jobs. What are the jobs that are going to be there? Well, a full build-out, consistent with most resort-style developments, they're going to hire full-time year-round, full-time seasonal, part-time year-round, part-time and part-time seasonal. And they even went so far as to say what those jobs are going to be. They're going to be food and beverage, culinary, events, outdoor pursuits and recreation, spa and fitness, maintenance, sales, and development. And as Amy pointed out, there are 481 FTEs. They got that by saying 750 positions, which 250 are full-time, 500 are part-time. But my conclusion is that the positions that are created at Stagecoach Mountain Ranch will most likely create jobs that have wages below what is needed to afford housing. So, what's the proposal? For the workforce housing, they propose 95 dwelling units on 2 parcels, a mix of types, studios, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, townhomes. So if you look at the UDC requirement, 15% of total proposed dwelling units, at full build-out, SMR will have 613 market rate units. That translates to 92 affordable workforce units. So by providing 95, they have exceeded the UDC requirement. Let's look at those. The first workforce unit that comes online is delivered in year 4. And it's 6 units. Then in year 5, they deliver another 6 units. So on. So they're delivering the units from year 4 to year 7. And then in year 7, there's also an 81 unit apartment complex that comes on board. So on a 15-year development, they're not delivering any of the work. They're delivering the housing in year 4 through year 7, halfway through the development. Which, that's their pride. So then, the next thing is their proposed employee housing solutions. 42 units. Again, 15% of the full-time FTEs, 481 FTEs, they need residences for 73 employees. And they're proposing accommodations for 90. So they believe they've exceeded the requirement. And again, it's a mix of 4-rent studios, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. And there will be 9 4-bedroom, single-family homes with ADUs, accessory dwelling units, as part of the employee housing. So it looks like they've delivered the units. But if we look at those accommodations, I did a deep dive into it, and I sort of is sort of unbelievable to me. The employee housing, when are they going to deliver that? Well, the first 3 years of the project, they're going to deliver 10 units. Or now they're talking about bedrooms, they're not talking about units. They're going to deliver 10 bedrooms for the first 3 years as workforce housing trailers. Temporary, furnished by the Oak Creek Fire District. So in year 3, when they retire those trailers, they're going to deliver 2 units, 2 of the 4-bedroom single-family homes. And I thought, 4-bedroom single-family home, that's really nice. You know, that could be a nuclear family, mom, dad, 2, 3 kids. That's nice. That could be a middle management position. But when you look at it, they said, no, there's 4 bedrooms there, so that's 4 employees. And the ADU in the backyard is another bedroom, which is another employee. So in these 4-bedroom single-family homes, we're going to stuff 4 employees. 2 units a year, delivered in year 3, year 5, 6, 7, and 8. So again, the development is halfway built before they start delivering even the bulk of their employee housing units. So, I'm probably past my time, but I'm going to connect the dots right now. The region's economy is heavily dependent on tourism and vacation industry. Most of the jobs created in that industry are at wages below what is needed to afford housing. The 481 FTE positions created by SMR will most likely be those sorts of jobs at those sorts of wages. Routt County as a whole has a dire need for affordable and workforce housing. Renters face the greatest challenge. Aging housing stock in South Routt, significant undersupply of house in South Routt, few rentals or homes for purchase in South Routt. So given all of this, the lack of rental and for sale housing product in South Routt, and they met the minimum from the UDC, but the majority of the SMR employees will be forced to commute from either Steamboat or the Vail Valley. So, in closing, what Stagecoach Mountain Ranch has proposed regarding workforce housing certainly meets the letter of the code, but it reflects neither the spirit nor the cadence of the broad community need regarding affordable workforce housing. In their proposed employee housing solutions, need serious rethinking and revision. Stuffing bodies into bedrooms won't foster a thriving community where neighbors can live, work, and raise families. And it certainly won't enhance employee recruitment and retention. So, what can we do about it? The Routt County Commissioners, one of the things that they have sole discretion on is employee housing. So they can look at the proposal and they can throw it out. They can do whatever they want. And I think that as a community, that would be something that we certainly should be lobbying the commissioners to do, is to have them rethink the employee housing. And then the numbers, you know, they've met the UDC, but there are other communities regarding workforce housing that say, you know, maybe workforce housing should be 30%. Maybe it should be 50%. I don't know what that number is, but 15% seems like a pretty low floor to be. But, you know, we can also get into a conversation about if we have workforce housing or employee housing that is 50% of the FTEs, what does that do to that community? I mean, that essentially becomes a company town. And, you know, you lose your job, you lose your housing. So we can push for more housing, but what are the consequences of that? You know, things that we as a community need to be aware of, and we need to start talking about.